Carlos Beltran hit 435 career home runs. Andruw Jones hit 434. Jones was born on April 23, 1977. Beltran was born on April 24. They played the same position in the same era, became two of the defining center fielders of their generation, and in 2026, they entered the Baseball Hall of Fame together. Baseball basically manufactured a versus episode for us, because somehow, two careers that look almost identical from 30,000 feet become completely different once you actually start digging. Jones may have been the greatest defensive center fielder of his generation. Beltran may have been its most complete. One exploded onto the World Series stage at 19. The other became one of the best postseason hitters baseball has ever seen. So who actually had the better career? Carlos Beltran versus Andruw Jones. 6 categories, 1 check each. Evidence over emotion. Let's settle it. Jones arrived first, and not quietly. He was 19 years old when Atlanta put him into the 1996 World Series, and in Game 1 he homered twice against the Yankees, becoming the youngest player ever to homer in the World Series. Apparently, normal 19-year-old activities weren't interesting enough. By 21, Jones was a full-time center fielder, a 30 home run threat, and already, arguably, the best defensive outfielder in baseball. Beltran's arrival was a little more traditional. He became Kansas City's everyday center fielder in 1999 and immediately won American League Rookie of the Year after producing 22 homers, 27 steals, 112 runs, and 108 RBIs. And from there, both men became prototypes for the 2000 center fielder. Power, speed, defense, middle of the order production. Except they accumulated that value in very different ways. So let's start with the biggest sample. Category 1, production. The similarities really are ridiculous. Home runs, Beltran 435, Jones 434. That is a statistical equivalent of winning a marathon by a shoelace. But beyond home runs, Beltran starts creating separation. He finished with 2,725 hits compared to Jones' 1,933. 1,582 runs to 1,204. 1,587 RBIs to 1,289. 312 stolen bases to 152 for Jones. Beltran hit 279 with a 350 on base and an 837 OPS. Jones hit 254, reached base at 337, and finished with an 823 OPS. And era-adjusted offense tells the same story. Beltran finished with an OPS plus of 119 and Jones 111. Meaning relative to their leagues and ballparks, Beltran was the better hitter over the full career. Then there's base running. Beltran wasn't just faster, he was incredibly efficient. He stole 312 bases while succeeding 86.4% of the time, the best success rate ever among players with at least 300 stolen bases. Fangraphs credits Beltran with a 68.4 career base running runs above average. Jones finished slightly below 0. That's not a small difference. That's basically one player treating the bases like a Grand Theft Auto map, while the other mostly stayed where he was assigned. Now Jones makes a massive amount of this back defensively. Fangraphs has them almost dead even in career WAR, 67.5 for Beltran and 67 for Jones. Baseball Reference creates more separation, roughly 70 WAR for Beltran and 63 for Jones. Different defensive systems produce different answers, which is worth remembering whenever someone treats WAR like it came down from Mount Sinai. But both systems agree Beltran at least finishes ahead. More offense, much more base running, more career production. Production check goes to Carlos Beltran. Category 2, peak. For peak, we're sticking with the same standard we normally use, the best 3-year stretch. Using Fangraphs WAR, Jones' best consecutive 3-year run comes from 98 through 2000. 7 WAR, 6.9, and 7.7. That's 21.6 WAR in 3 seasons. Beltran's best stretch is 2006 through 2008. 7.8, 5.1, and 7.2. That's 20.1. Close, very close. But Jones wins, and his peak became even easier to understand when you isolate what made him different. In 1998 alone, Jones posted a 3.9 defensive WAR according to Baseball Reference. The Hall of Fame notes that only 2 previous outfielders had ever reached that number in a season. And by 2005, his offense caught up with the reputation of his glove. 51 home runs, 128 RBIs, both league-leading totals, second in National League MVP voting. So at Jones' best, you're getting 40 to 50 home run power combined with center field defense that bordered on absurd. Beltran's peak was more balanced, Jones' peak was more extreme, and over a 3-year standard, it was slightly more valuable. Peak goes to Andruw Jones. We're tied 1-1. Let's talk about accolades. Beltran has an excellent resume here. 9 All-Star selections, 3 Gold Gloves, 2 Silver Sluggers, the 1999 Rookie of the Year, the 2013 Roberto Clemente Award, and 2 top 10 MVP finishes, including 4th in 06. Jones made only 5 All-Star teams. He won 1 Silver Slugger, but then we reached the number that basically swallows this category. 10 consecutive Gold Gloves, 98 through 2007. Only Willie Mays and Ken Griffey Jr. have won as many or more among center fielders. And unlike some Gold Glove resumes from that era, the modern defensive numbers aren't exposing Jones. They're making the case stronger. No outfielder in Baseball Reference history has more career defensive WAR than Andruw Jones. And the 2005 home run title, RBI title, the Hank Aaron Award, and the second place MVP finish. And Jones' hardware represents something Beltran never quite had, a period where he was arguably the very best player in the league. Beltran has more All-Star appearances. Jones has the heavier trophy case. Accolades goes to Andruw Jones. Team success. This one definitely needs context, because if we simply count October appearances, Jones wins easily. He reached the postseason 11 different times and appeared in 18 postseason series. The Braves made the playoffs every year from his debut in 96 through 2005. Jones played in the 96 and 99 World Series. That's a decade spent in championship contention. Beltran reached October in only 7 seasons, but what happened once he got there is almost unfair. In 65 postseason games, a 307 average, a 412 on base percentage, 609 slugging, 16 home runs, and he went 11 for 11 stealing bases. His 2004 run with Houston was particularly ridiculous. 8 home runs in 12 games. He basically spent October playing against minor league pitching. Jones was good in October. A 273 average, a 363 on base percentage, 10 homers in 76 games. Beltran was historically great. Beltran reached the World Series with St. Louis in 2013 and finally won one with Houston in 2017. And yes, we have to address the giant trash can sitting in the room. Beltran was identified by Major League Baseball's investigation as a central figure in Houston's illegal sign stealing operation. So I'm not treating that 2017 championship like an uncomplicated trump card. It isn't. But Beltran's postseason resume was established more than a decade before Houston. 2004 Houston, 2006 New York, 2012 and 13 St. Louis. This isn't a case where one ring creates the entire argument. Jones reached October more often. Beltran did considerably more damage when he got there, reached 2 World Series himself, and eventually finished with a championship. By the narrowest margin so far, team success goes to Carlos Beltran. Longevity. Through his 20s, Andruw Jones was building one of the most fascinating Hall of Fame resumes ever. Through age 29, he already had 342 home runs and approximately 58 Baseball Reference WAR. Then his career hit the brakes, hard. At age 30, Jones hit 222. At 31 with the Dodgers, he had a 158 average and just a 256 on base percentage. 3 home runs. Fangraphs had him below replacement level. From age 30 onward, Jones accumulated just 4.7 Baseball Reference WAR. A career that once looked like it might threaten 600 home runs ended with 434. He played his final major league game at age 35. Beltran aged almost completely different. At 34, he posted a 152 WRC+. At 35, it was 124. At 36, it was 131. And at age 39, Beltran played 151 games, hit 29 home runs, and produced a 122 WRC+. 20 major league seasons, 2,586 games, more than 11,000 plate appearances. Jones played 17 in 2,196. Jones had the younger start. Beltran had the dramatically longer finish, and that's the difference. Longevity goes to Carlos Beltran. And somehow, after all that, they ended up standing on the Cooperstown stage together. Both were inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame in 2026. Beltran received 84.2% of the vote, and Jones received 78.4%. Jones' legacy is easy to identify. He's one of the greatest defensive outfielders baseball has ever seen. 10 Gold Gloves, the highest defensive WAR of any outfielder in Baseball Reference history. 434 home runs. And he became the first Hall of Famer born in the Dutch Caribbean. There will probably never be another Andruw Jones career. The defense alone makes sure of it. Beltran's legacy is broader. He's one of only 4 players ever with at least 1,500 runs, 2,700 hits, 400 home runs, and 300 stolen bases. The others? Willie Mays, Barry Bonds, Alex Rodriguez. That's not a neighborhood. That's a gated community. His postseason performance is part of baseball history. His power-speed combination is part of baseball history. His stolen base efficiency is part of baseball history. and his Hall of Fame metrics place him ninth among center fielder in Jaws, slightly ahead of Jones. But the Astro scandal is also part of Beltran's legacy. You don't get to erase it because other numbers are convenient. That's why this category is incredibly close. Jones owns the more distinctive single skill. Beltran built the broader historical resume. And when I combine the regular season, October, the rare milestones, and the total career, I'm giving legacy narrowly to Carlos Beltran. Let's check the scoreboard. Production Beltran, peak Jones, accolades Jones, team success Beltran, longevity Beltran, and legacy Beltran. Final score, Carlos Beltran 4, Andruw Jones 2. And that score is honestly less comfortable than it looks, because if you ask me which player I'd want for his absolute prime, there's a very strong case for Andruw Jones. At his best, you're getting middle of the order power and arguably historic defense at one of baseball's most important positions. But a career isn't 3 seasons, and over the full resume, Beltran gives you more. More offense, more base running value, more longevity, more postseason production, and ultimately more total career value. Jones reached the higher defensive ceiling. Beltran covered more ground everywhere else. So the verdict isn't that Andruw Jones wasn't great enough. He's a Hall of Famer for a reason. It's just that Carlos Beltran was a little more complete for a little longer. But now I want your verdict. If you're building a team, what matters more? Andruw Jones' historic defense and slightly higher peak, or Carlos Beltran's legacy, balance, and postseason resume? Tell me who gets your check in the comments. And if you want another center fielder argument from this era, Kenny Lofton versus Jim Edmonds might be waiting for us. Until next time, the numbers tell part of the story, the context tells the rest.